The Burning Crusade was set in Outland, the shattered remnants of the world of Draenor, drifting through the chaotic energies of the twisting nether. There, we saw not only the wastelands one might expect to find on a destroyed world, but also life. Areas that were relatively preserved, giving us a glimpse of what once was, and areas that have been twisted beyond recognition by the energies unleashed during Draenor's destruction and the prolonged exposure to the nether. In these otherworldly environments, we found strange creatures, some just as warped as their native world. At the end of Legion, we visited another destroyed world, Argus, the homeworld of the Eredar, which had been turned into the throne world of the demonic Burning Legion. Similar to Outland, we saw a variety of different environments, from desolate wastes to a preserved piece of the past. We saw creatures forever warped by the fell energies, as well as demonic beasts. We even got glimpses of other worlds being invaded by the Legion. This brings us to Karesh, the homeworld of the Ethereals, which consists entirely of sparkling sand and the occasional reused asset. Even the main hub was reused, being the mega dungeon from Shadowlands transported into this zone. On top of that, the majority of the city is a combat zone, resulting in most of the buildings being completely empty. Imagine, if you will, that instead of taking Tajavesh and moving it over there, the main hub was a city, blending Arabian-style architecture with the technology of the Ethereals. Built around an oasis inside of a massive ecodome, the Ethereals terraforming structures. And instead of the zone being a couple of tiny floating islands, it was instead a cluster of much larger landmasses floating directly above the planet, rather than at an awkward angle to the side of it. Their sand-swept waste, broken up not by the same generic ruins we see back on Azeroth, but ruined versions of those same Arabian-style buildings we saw in the main hub. And by large ecodomes containing a wide variety of different environments, rather than the small, mostly barren ones that we got in-game. While looking a few things up for this video, I came across a few fan-made maps, ranging from a full-on expansion idea to just a simple patch zone. But you don't have to compare the zone we got to their ideas, my idea, or even the old expansions to be disappointed by it. The previous major patch sent us to Undermine, the capital city of Goblin Kind. Each subsection of the zone has its own identity, its own unique feeling, and every one of the many interiors has its own charm and character. Undermine seems like it was made with love and passion, while Karesh feels like it was thrown together in under half an hour by Tim from accounting, who was probably in a rush to get to his next voice acting gig.
I will crush you to embers!
So the zone leaves a lot to be desired. But what about the creatures? What sorts of strange new alien beings were waiting for us on this far-off planet out in the depths of space? Creatures from Outland, creatures from Argus, creatures from the Shadowlands, and creatures from Azeroth. There's also demons that are now void creatures, I guess. The few new creatures that they added were just slightly different versions of pre-existing animals. Even these insectoid creatures are just variations of the same thing we've seen over and over again. But let's talk about the story. During the Undermined campaign, some guy stole the Dark Heart.
And then?
Some guy takes the Dark Heart back to Karesh to revive the Void Lord Dimensius.
And then?
The Karesh Trust, a coalition of brokers and ethereals led by the broker Venari, noticed that this is happening because they ever so coincidentally decided that now was the time to retake Karesh. Why did they decide to wait until now when they clearly could have just gone there at any point? Why does the Trust seem to almost exclusively be brokers? Why are they following Venari, who in Shadowlands was shown to be a hated exile living alone in the mall? And why are the Consortium and the various important ethereals nowhere to be found? All of these are excellent questions that I hope you weren't expecting to get an answer to. The ethereal known as Locust Walker requests that we and Illyria Windrunner go to Karesh. There he reveals that he has aligned himself with the expansion's main villain Xalatath, whom he assures us is most definitely very trustworthy and on our side. We then learn about the existence of magical items called Rishi Ribbons, which are immensely powerful items capable of doing whatever the plot needs them to do. The Ravel, a not-so-secret organization containing the likes of Venari and Locust Walker, wants to use these ribbons to terraform the desert waste of Karesh. and Xalatath conducted a ritual using the magic Rishi's peanut butter cups to transform the entirety of Karesh's people into energy beings. A ritual that she tells you she can do on you, but will only be temporary due to the fact that you only have one ribbon. Except that the Rabble members each only had one ribbon and the rest of their species had 0, and yet their transformations were all permanent. And when she does the ritual, you have to hold on to the plot device in order for it to happen, but later, she does the same ritual again while she holds multiple of them, and the transformation is still temporary. Okay. Just don't think about it. We spend the majority of the story looking for plot coupons to exchange for access to the final boss fight. Along the way, we learn that the Rabble destroyed their world in an effort to stop Dimensius from destroying their world. Don't think about it. We also encounter a group called the Wastelanders, ethereals who stayed behind on the ruins of Karesh. And when we ask them for the ribbon in their possession, they respond with,
"But I think you want the ribbon I took from that Rabble broker."
Yes, that would be why I asked you for it in the first place. This has to have been written by an AI. There's no way that a human being would have written that. Then again, an AI would have been creative enough to not have the ethereals and brokers harp on and on about oaths.
You dare break your oath? Your oath to me, and by sacred oath, or die as oath-breaker.
Fulfill your oath!
Honor an oath?
I will die oath-bound. Keep to your oath.
A deal is just another kind of oath.
Be quiet.
One might have expected them to learn their lesson from the Dragonflight Tuskar,
Come back for soup!
but I suppose they didn't learn their lesson from Shadowlands either, as they once again had a character betray us during the later part of a time-gated story, who ended up being the final boss of a dungeon that was available during the first week. And not only did they not learn their lesson, but this time around they did it worse. Devos was at least given a reason for her betrayal, while the Wastelanders betray us because King Solhadar shows up out of nowhere and tells them that they have to because they made a pinky promise, to which they reply, "You're comically evil, but you said so okay." After the Wastelanders betray us and we turn in our plot coupons, we defeat Dimensius, and to the surprise of absolutely no one, Xalatath betrays us. And that's it, the story's over. We spend the whole story hunting for plot devices, while a series of ultimately inconsequential events occurs around us in a sequence that can only be described as... Not that many events even occurred. The story was just as bland and empty as the zone it took place in, and the rest of the patch's content isn't much better. I had originally intended to at least do the raid on normal difficulty, but the patch filled me with such a level of apathy that I instantly became burned out not only on retail but classic as well. So I elected to at least do the story mode so I could see WoW's biggest raid boss ever, who as it turns out is only in that large form during a phase of that fight where you fly around and is otherwise no bigger than any other raid boss. The dungeon for this patch was boring and forgettable, just more of the same stuff you already saw in the zone, but inside of an instance this time. A far cry from the likes of the Cathedral of Eternal Night from Legion. But what about the Mega Dungeon? Every expansion since Legion has had a Mega Dungeon. They just reused the one from Shadowlands. But reusing Tazavesh twice wasn't the only instance of them reusing things for this patch. The previous major patch, Undermined, came with 2 delves, both set inside unique interiors. This patch's singular delve is set inside that one dungeon from Dragonflight. And the Challenge Delve boss is simply a boss from the first raid of the expansion, and happens to be this patch's obligatory voiceless character.
I hope you're ready for this.
I've seen people say that this fight is the best designed fight yet, and I can't say I agree. I may be in the minority for thinking this, but having to dodge a relentless barrage of instant kill mechanics is not my idea of fun. I find it much more exhilarating to just barely survive a heavy hit and then turn the fight around and still win. I know the ad spawn mechanic for the underpin can be a bit troublesome, but the combination of the arena, the jazzy combat music, and the memorable voice lines leads to the underpin fight being significantly more enjoyable. Now that I've covered the instance content, let's jump back to the zone itself. The side quests were just as bland and forgettable as everything else, with the only standout being one about a brother and sister reuniting and visiting their mother's grave. There's a weekly quest that has you do several tedious, time-consuming tasks before ultimately going after the main quest target. I can appreciate their desire to improve upon the traditional wanted quest system, though if it isn't broken then there's no need to fix it. However, running around chasing rats for 30 to 40 minutes isn't the way to go. I would have vastly preferred it if they would have done something akin to the Bounty Week from the Old Republic. Question NPCs, gather clues, and then be pointed in the direction of the spawn location for your target. The patch also includes a quest line which they refer to as an activity, where you bring animals to one of the ecodomes. However, after being forced to pet bees and being given my second quest to take pictures of them during the excruciatingly long intro to that activity, I swiftly lost interest. The only other thing to do in the zone is another activity called phase diving, where you turn yourself into sparkly pink energy like Khadgar's wheelchair and encounter an alternate set of enemies in the zone. I am a fan of this conceptually, crossing the veil and encountering creatures just outside of human perception, but I wish they would have done more with it. Maybe used it for open world puzzles, or used it in dungeons and delves to get past obstacles or for certain fight phases. Unfortunately, it's just an extra step in certain world quests and fighting certain rares. What makes this patch even more frustrating is the fact that this is it. This patch was the final major story update for the expansion, World of Warcraft's 4th 2-patch expansion, and they just phoned it in. They just gave up after Undermined. And don't let the copium addicts convince you that it's because they're working on the next expansion. Not when the only new Demon Hunter race is just the Alliance reskin of a race that already has the class. The only thing I have left to say about this patch is, if the creator has no passion, then it is not a work of art, it is merely refuse.